The girl was supposed to die before sunrise. The storm had already buried half the forest beneath mountains of snow. The temperature was cold enough to freeze blood inside veins. No human should have survived the night. Yet when the Alpha King followed the trail of wolves through the blizzard, he discovered something impossible. A young woman lay unconscious in the snow. 12 starving wolf pups were curled around her body. Using her last strength, she had wrapped them inside her torn cloak while exposing herself to the freezing wind. Tiny paws pressed against her chest. Small bodies trembled against her fading warmth. She had chosen their lives over her own. The king should have walked away. He had become a monster years ago. Mercy no longer belonged to him. But then the wind shifted. A scent reached him. One scent. One memory. One ghost he had spent 5 years searching for. His entire body froze. His wolf exploded awake inside him. And for the first time since the day his Luna disappeared, the most feared ruler in the kingdom looked terrified. Because the woman dying in the snow carried the scent of the mate he had buried in his heart years ago. Winter had swallowed the northern wilderness whole. The sky hung low and gray above endless forests. Snow buried roads. Rivers froze solid. Entire villages disappeared beneath storms that lasted for weeks. Deep within that frozen wilderness stood an abandoned hunting cabin forgotten by maps and memory. Inside, 12 wolf pups slept beside a dying fire. Their tiny bodies pressed together for warmth. Their soft breathing filled the darkness. And beside them sat a young woman wrapped in patched furs. Her fingers were cracked from cold, her cheeks pale from exhaustion. Yet every few moments she reached toward the pups, gently checking each one to make sure they were still breathing. The smallest pup whimpered. Immediately her expression softened. She gathered the trembling creature into her arms. "It's all right." The words came out barely louder than a whisper. Outside, wind screamed against the cabin walls. Inside, her heartbeat remained steady, protective, patient, loving. She had no family, no title, no kingdom, only 12 helpless lives depending on her. And somehow that was enough. For 5 years she had lived like this, surviving, enduring, trying to ignore the strange emptiness inside her chest, the feeling that she belonged somewhere else, that someone was missing. Sometimes dreams haunted her. Golden eyes, moonlight, a voice calling her name. Then she would wake alone. The memories always vanished before sunrise. A sudden howl shattered the night. The pups instantly stirred. Her body tensed. Predators. Again. She grabbed a hunting spear and stepped outside. The cold hit like a knife. Snow whipped across the forest. Darkness swallowed everything beyond a few feet. Then she heard it. A cry. Small. Terrified. One of the pups. Her heart dropped. There should have been 12. Only 11 remained inside. Without hesitation, she ran into the storm. The forest fought her every step. Snow reached her knees. Branches clawed at her skin. The wind stole every breath. Then she found the missing pup. The tiny wolf had fallen through a frozen stream. Cracks spread rapidly beneath the ice. The animal cried desperately. Fear flooded her chest. But she never hesitated. She dropped to her stomach and crawled forward. The ice groaned. The freezing water surged beneath her. One wrong movement meant death. Still she kept moving. The pup was more important. The ice shattered. Cold exploded around her. Pain ripped through her body. But her hand caught the pup. She pulled it free seconds before the entire surface collapsed. The world became water. Darkness. Freezing agony. When she finally dragged herself onto the riverbank, her vision blurred. The pup survived. She smiled despite the pain. Then the blizzard intensified. The storm became a monster. She stumbled through the forest carrying the pup against her chest. One step. Another. Then another. Her strength disappeared. The cold invaded her bones. Her knees buckled. The world tilted sideways. Snow swallowed her. The last thing she saw was 12 tiny wolves surrounding her body, trying desperately to keep her warm. Then darkness claimed her. Hours later, another predator entered the storm. Not a beast. A king. The Alpha King rode through the wilderness surrounded by elite warriors. Black armor, silver eyes, a reputation stained by blood and war. Men feared him. Enemies prayed never to meet him. Since losing his Luna, he had become something dangerous. Something broken. His wolf sensed it first. A scent. Impossible. Familiar. His horse stopped instantly. Every muscle in his body locked. The scent hit him like lightning. The world vanished. The storm vanished. The soldiers vanished. Only that scent remained. His Luna. No. Impossible. She was dead. He had watched them search the river. Watched them recover nothing. Watched hope die. Yet the scent remained. Stronger now. Closer. The king dismounted before anyone could stop him. He followed the trail through deep snow. Every heartbeat louder than thunder. Then he saw her. A woman buried beneath white frost. 12 wolf pups protecting her body. For several seconds the king forgot how to breathe. The storm continued. The world continued. But he remained frozen. She looked older, weaker, different. Yet something inside him already knew. His wolf was nearly frantic. The king dropped to his knees. Slowly, carefully, as though touching a dream. His hand brushed against her frozen wrist. The sleeve shifted. Moonlight reflected across a familiar mark. A silver crescent moon. The same mark his Luna carried. The same mark he had kissed beneath moonlit gardens years ago. His entire body trembled. No. The word escaped him. Barely audible. His wolf roared inside his soul. Not with rage. Not with grief. With recognition. With certainty. With hope. The woman opened her eyes for the briefest moment. Golden eyes met silver. A forgotten bond stirred. Then darkness claimed her again. And, for the first time in 5 years, the Alpha King felt fear. Because if this truly was his Luna, then someone had lied to him, and everything he believed about her disappearance was about to unravel. The journey back to the capital felt longer than any war the Alpha King had ever fought. Snow continued falling from black skies. The unconscious woman remained wrapped inside his heavy fur cloak. He refused to place her in a supply wagon, refused to allow healers near her, refused to let anyone else carry her. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. No one dared question him, yet everyone noticed. The Alpha King, who once executed traitors without blinking, now rode through a blizzard holding a fragile woman against his chest as though she were the most precious thing in the world. Even stranger, the 12 wolf pups followed. For 3 days. Through snow, through rivers, through mountain passes. None of them left her side. It felt less like an escort, and more like fate itself marching beside them. The king's silver eyes never strayed far from her face. Every few minutes he checked her breathing. Every few minutes his hand found her pulse. As though he feared she would disappear the moment he looked away. Again, just like 5 years ago. The memories stabbed him relentlessly. Blood-staining snow. Broken screams. The river swallowing everything. The feeling of his soul being ripped apart. He had survived countless battles. Yet nothing had destroyed him the way losing her had. Nothing. And now she was here. Breathing. Alive. Close enough to touch. Hope should have felt comforting. Instead it terrified him. Because hope could still be taken away. Hope could still die. And he wasn't sure he would survive losing her twice. The towering royal fortress finally emerged through the winter fog. Massive stone walls stretched across the mountain cliffs. Silver banners danced in the wind. The sight normally inspired fear. Today it inspired only urgency. The moment the gates opened, the king carried her directly toward the royal healing wing. Servants scattered from his path. Healers rushed forward. The king's voice stopped them instantly. Save her. Only 2 words. Yet every person inside the room immediately understood. This was not a command. It was a warning. Failure was not an option. Hours passed. Then night arrived. The woman remained unconscious. The king never left. Candles flickered throughout the chamber. Their golden light painted shadows across stone walls. Outside the window, snow continued falling. Inside, silence ruled. The king sat beside her bed. Motionless. Watching. Waiting. A healer eventually approached. Nervous. Careful. Your Majesty, perhaps you should rest. The king's gaze never moved.
No.
The healer swallowed hard. You haven't slept. Still no movement.
No.
The conversation ended. The healer wisely retreated. Across the room, the 12 pups slept beside the fireplace. Safe.
Warm.
Protected. The king glanced toward them. His chest tightened unexpectedly. He remembered another winter. Another night. A young Omega girl secretly sneaking injured animals into the castle despite royal rules. She had always been unable to ignore suffering. Always. The memory hurt, but it also felt warm. For years, every memory brought only pain. Tonight, something felt different. For the first time, the memory carried life. A faint sound interrupted his thoughts. The woman shifted beneath the blankets. Instantly, he stood. Her breathing changed.
Faster.
Uneven. A dream. Or perhaps a nightmare. Her eyebrows tightened. Fear flickered across her face. No. The whisper escaped her lips. The king froze. It was her voice. Older.
Softer.
Yet unmistakably hers. 1,000 memories slammed into him. Moonlit gardens. Secret laughter. Stolen moments hidden from royal responsibilities. The promise he once made beneath the stars. The promise he failed to keep. The woman stirred again. A tear slipped down her cheek. Then another. Though unconscious, she seemed trapped inside painful memories. The king's jaw tightened. Without thinking, he reached toward her hand. The moment their skin touched, everything changed. Her breathing slowed. The tension left her face. The nightmare faded. Silence returned. The king stared. His wolf immediately reacted. The bond. Even after 5 years. Even after death had nearly separated them forever. The bond remained. Powerful. Unbroken. Dangerous. For the first time in years, something inside him cracked. Not weakness. Not grief. Hope. And hope was far more terrifying. Days passed. The fortress slowly transformed. Servants whispered constantly. Guards exchanged rumors. The mysterious woman became the center of every conversation. Especially when people noticed the king's behavior. He stopped attending banquets. Stopped participating in hunting expeditions. Stopped spending evenings with the Silver Duchess. Instead, he remained near one room. One bed. One sleeping woman. The Silver Duchess noticed immediately. And she hated it. From the highest tower, she watched the healing wing through frosted windows. Her silver gown shimmered beneath candlelight. Beautiful. Elegant.
Deadly.
For 5 years, she had carefully built influence around the grieving king. 5 years. Now, everything threatened to collapse. Because of one woman. A woman who was supposed to be dead. The Duchess clenched her wine glass. Hard enough to crack it. Something wasn't right. The king's obsession felt familiar. Too familiar. And familiarity frightened her. She immediately ordered spies to investigate. Every detail. Every rumor. Every secret. Find the woman's identity. No matter the cost. Back inside the healing chamber, the woman finally opened her eyes. Morning sunlight spilled through crystal windows. Warmth surrounded her. For several moments, confusion ruled. Where was she? This wasn't the cabin. This wasn't the forest. This wasn't home. Panic surged. She sat upright too quickly. Pain exploded through her body. A gasp escaped her lips. Instantly, movement came from beside the bed. The Alpha King. He had been there. Watching. Waiting. The sight stole her breath. Power radiated from him effortlessly. His broad shoulders. His silver eyes. His commanding presence. Everything about him felt overwhelming. Dangerous. Yet strangely familiar. A sensation she couldn't explain settled inside her chest. As though some forgotten part of her recognized him. Neither spoke. The silence stretched. Heavy. Tense. Electric. Then one of the pups suddenly leaped onto the bed. Another followed. Then another. Within seconds, all 12 surrounded her. Whining. Licking her face. Demanding attention. The tension shattered instantly. To her surprise, the king laughed. Actually laughed. The deep sound filled the room.
Rich. Warm.
Human. She stared. Shock flickered across her face. Because somehow, she knew, men like him weren't supposed to laugh. And judging from the startled expressions outside the doorway, neither did anyone else. For a brief moment the king's walls disappeared. The monster vanished. A broken man remained. Then she noticed something hanging around his neck. A necklace.
Old.
Damaged. Familiar. Pain exploded behind her eyes.
A flash.
Moonlight. A garden. Golden promises. A kiss. Then darkness. The vision vanished.
She gasped.
The king immediately stepped forward. What did you see?
His voice was calm.
But desperation hid beneath it. The woman touched her temple. Confused. Shaken. I don't know. And for the first time, she was telling the truth. Because somewhere deep inside her fractured memories, a door had begun opening. And neither of them were prepared for what waited behind it. Far away, inside her private chambers, the Silver Duchess finally received her first report. The spy placed a small sketch on the table. The Duchess looked down. Then all color drained from her face. The drawing showed a young woman. A familiar face. A face she had seen before. The face of the Luna she personally ensured disappeared 5 years ago. Fear finally entered her heart. Because dead women were not supposed to come back. And, if this one remembered the truth, everything she had built would burn. The Duchess slowly smiled. A cold smile. A dangerous smile. Because if fate intended to bring the Luna home, then she would simply have to kill her again. The royal court had survived wars. It had survived assassinations. It had survived famine, rebellion, and bloodshed. Yet nothing spread through the castle faster than a beautiful mystery. And the mysterious woman sleeping beneath the king's protection had become the most dangerous mystery of all. The whispers began in servant corridors, then moved into noble chambers, then reached the royal council itself. Nobody knew her name. Nobody knew her history. But everyone knew one thing. The Alpha King had changed. And that terrified them. For 5 years the kingdom had known only one version of its ruler. Cold. Merciless. Unreachable. A king carved from grief and iron. A king whose heart had frozen the day his Luna vanished. Yet now, servants saw him smiling. Guards witnessed him abandoning meetings to visit the healing wing. Even the royal wolves seemed calmer whenever she was near. The change was impossible to ignore, which made it impossible to forgive. Especially for the Silver Duchess. The morning sun poured through the fortress windows as preparations began. Today would be the woman's first appearance inside the royal court. The king had ordered it himself. He needed answers. The nobles needed answers. And somewhere inside her fractured memories, the truth waited. The woman stood before a mirror. A royal gown of silver blue silk draped around her body. Her dark hair flowed over her shoulders like midnight water. For a moment she barely recognized herself. The girl from the wilderness seemed gone. The reflection staring back looked like someone else. Someone important. Someone familiar. A strange ache settled inside her chest. Then one of the wolf pups bumped against her leg. The sensation grounded her instantly. She smiled softly. The small wolf wagged its tail. For a brief moment, peace existed. Then the chamber door opened. The Alpha King entered. The room changed immediately. Power followed him like a shadow. Every servant lowered their heads. Every guard straightened. Yet his silver eyes focused on only one person. Her. Always her. The woman felt her pulse quicken. Not from fear. Something worse. Something far more dangerous. Recognition. The king stopped several feet away. For a long moment neither spoke. Silence stretched between them.
Heavy.
Electric. Uncomfortable. The kind of silence that felt full of unfinished conversations. You don't have to do this.
His voice was low.
Gentler than expected. The woman blinked. What if I want answers? A shadow crossed his expression. So do I. The honesty surprised them both. For a brief second the walls around his heart cracked open. She saw exhaustion there. Loneliness.
Pain.
The look vanished quickly, but she had seen it, and somehow that made him more frightening than before. Because monsters were easy to hate. Broken men were not. The grand court doors opened. Trumpets echoed through the hall. Hundreds of nobles turned simultaneously. The room fell silent. Then she entered, and the kingdom stared. Crystal chandeliers illuminated polished marble floors. Golden banners hung from towering columns. Nobles lined both sides of the chamber. Yet none of that mattered. Every eye remained fixed on her. Shock spread instantly. The resemblance was undeniable. Older nobles paled. Some dropped their wine glasses. Others whispered prayers beneath their breath. Because they remembered. They remembered the lost Luna. And the woman walking beside the king carried her face. The atmosphere shifted. Fear became suspicion. Suspicion became panic. The Silver Duchess watched everything from her place beside the throne. Her smile never moved, but her fingers tightened around her chair. The resemblance was even worse in person. For the first time in years, the Duchess felt genuinely threatened. The king guided the woman toward the throne platform, not touching her, not claiming her, yet somehow remaining close enough to protect her. The entire court noticed. Jealousy ignited instantly, particularly among the noble daughters who had spent years attempting to win the king's attention. One glance told them everything. The king looked at this woman differently, dangerously differently. The royal council meeting began. Questions followed immediately. What is her identity? Where was she found? How can we trust her? Why does she resemble the lost Luna? Each question struck harder than the last. The woman answered honestly. She remembered little. Only fragments. Pieces. Dreams. The more she spoke, the more uneasy the room became. Because confusion could not be disproven. And uncertainty frightened powerful people. Then the Silver Duchess made her move. Perfectly timed. Perfectly calculated. A servant entered carrying sealed documents. The Duchess rose gracefully. Concern painted across her beautiful face. My king. The sweetness in her voice felt poisonous. A disturbing report has arrived. The court immediately fell silent. The king narrowed his eyes. What report? The Duchess unfolded a parchment. Slowly, carefully, like a hunter revealing a blade. It appears witnesses have identified this woman. The room froze. The woman's heartbeat accelerated. A strange sense of dread crawled down her spine. The Duchess continued. Several former rebels claim she traveled with insurgents during the Northern Uprising. Gasps erupted. Shock spread across the hall. The woman stared in disbelief. What? The Duchess sighed dramatically. As much as I hoped otherwise. More documents appeared. More testimonies. More accusations. Each one carefully crafted. Each one a lie. Yet they looked real. Painfully real. The woman felt the room turning against her. Eyes filled with suspicion. Whispers growing louder. Judgment spreading. And suddenly, the feeling seemed familiar. Too familiar. A sharp pain exploded behind her eyes. A flash. Snow. Screaming. Running. Fear. Another flash. Men carrying rebel banners. Fire-consuming villages. Blood-staining white ground. The memory vanished instantly. She staggered. The king caught her before she could fall. The entire court noticed. The protective gesture lasted only seconds. Yet it revealed everything. The king's wolf already trusted her. Perhaps too much. The Silver Duchess saw it too. And hated it. The woman slowly regained balance. Her breathing uneven. What is happening to me? No one answered. Because nobody knew. Least of all her. Days passed. The accusations refused to disappear. More rumors emerged. More witnesses appeared. Each story painted her as a spy, a manipulator, an infiltrator. The pressure became unbearable. The king investigated personally. Yet every answer created more questions. Logic pointed one direction. Instinct pointed another. His wolf trusted her completely. His heart recognized her. But fear whispered constantly. What if he was wrong? What if grief had blinded him? What if hope was simply another trap? Meanwhile, their connection deepened. Not through romance. Not through affection. Through shared suffering. Late one evening, he found her alone in the palace gardens. Moonlight covered everything in silver. Snow drifted softly around ancient statues. She stood staring toward the stars. Lost in thought. Lost in memories. The king approached quietly. Neither spoke immediately. The silence felt comfortable. Almost intimate. Then she whispered, "Sometimes I think I'm forgetting someone." The king froze. Her eyes remained fixed on the moon. "I don't know who." Pain entered her voice. "But it hurts." Something shattered inside him. Because he understood. More than anyone. The king stepped closer. Close enough to hear her breathing. Close enough to feel the bond humming between them. "You aren't alone." The words escaped before he could stop them. For a moment she looked at him. Really looked at him. And for the first time, she saw loneliness equal to her own. Then everything changed. A sudden scream shattered the night. The garden exploded into chaos. Guards rushed forward. Steel flashed. An assassin emerged from the shadows. The attack happened too fast. Too violently. The killer charged directly toward the king. A blade aimed for his heart. Instinct took over. The woman moved first. She shoved the king aside. The knife missed. Guards intercepted the assassin seconds later. Steel clashed. Blood sprayed. The attacker died before speaking. Silence followed. Heavy. Terrible. Then a guard discovered something. A piece of evidence. A silver token hidden inside the assassin's cloak. The same symbol found among the belongings taken from the mysterious woman weeks earlier. The court erupted overnight. Rumors became certainty. Accusations became condemnation. By dawn the kingdom believed one thing. The woman had orchestrated the assassination attempt. And as nobles gathered around the evidence, as voices demanded punishment, as the world turned against her, the woman looked toward the Alpha King. Desperately. Fearfully. Searching for trust. Searching for belief. But the king stood frozen. Staring at the evidence. Staring at the symbol. Staring at the impossible choice before him. And for the first time since she arrived, she wondered if he might actually doubt her. The realization hit harder than any blade. And somewhere in the shadows above the court, the Silver Duchess smiled. Because the first crack had finally appeared. And soon, everything would begin to break. The kingdom turned against her before sunrise. Whispers became accusations. Accusations became judgment. Judgment became hatred. The fortress that had once offered warmth now felt like a prison built from suspicion and fear. Outside the palace walls, citizens gathered in growing crowds. Rumors spread through the capital faster than wildfire. The mysterious woman. The king's obsession. The attempted assassination. The rebel symbol. Every story grew darker each time it was repeated. By morning, half the kingdom believed she had manipulated the Alpha King from the moment she arrived. And the other half feared she would destroy the throne itself. The Silver Duchess watched everything unfold from her balcony. Snow drifted softly around her silver gown. Far below, angry voices echoed through the city streets. The sound made her smile. Years of planning. Years of lies. Years of carefully planted seeds. Everything was finally blooming. All she needed now was one final push. One final betrayal. And the Luna would disappear forever. Again. Inside the royal fortress, the woman stood alone. The 12 wolves paced restlessly around her chambers. They sensed danger. Animals always did. The room felt suffocating. Every servant avoided her eyes. Every guard seemed colder. Even the air itself felt heavier. For days she had searched for answers. For days she had hoped the king would come. Explain. Reassure. Believe her. Instead, silence greeted her. And silence hurt far more than accusations. Because silence created doubt. For the first time since arriving at the fortress, fear began creeping into her heart. What if he no longer trusted her? What if he believed them? A sharp pain suddenly exploded behind her eyes. She gasped. The room spun violently. The wolves immediately rushed toward her. Memories. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Fragments colliding together like shattered glass. A moonlit garden. Golden laughter. A necklace. Silver eyes. A promise. Then,
Fire.
screaming.
Blood.
The rebellion. The memory struck harder than lightning. She saw herself running through snow-covered corridors. Saw soldiers fighting. Saw chaos consuming the kingdom. And then she saw her, the Silver Duchess, standing in a hallway illuminated by flames. Watching. Smiling. Waiting. The memory sharpened. The Duchess had approached her. Spoken softly. Pretended concern. Pretended friendship. Then, a shove. A scream. The frozen river below. Dark water swallowing everything. The woman staggered backward. Her breathing became frantic. No. Another memory emerged. The Duchess had never tried to save her. The Duchess had tried to kill her. The truth crashed into her all at once. Years of missing memories finally returned. Every missing piece. Every forgotten face. Every lost moment. She remembered who she was. The Luna. The future queen. The king's mate. The woman the kingdom believed dead. Tears filled her eyes. Not from relief. From heartbreak. Because remembering also meant remembering him. The Alpha King. The young man who once laughed beneath moonlit trees. The young Alpha who promised she would never face darkness alone. The man she loved. And the man who now seemed willing to abandon her. A knock interrupted the storm inside her mind. The chamber door opened. The king entered. Silence followed. Heavy. Painful. The moment their eyes met, something changed. He saw it immediately. The memories had returned. The confusion was gone. The woman standing before him finally knew who she was. Hope surged through him. Powerful. Dangerous.
Terrifying.
He stepped forward. Luna. The word broke from him before he could stop it. Her eyes filled instantly. For years she had dreamed of hearing that voice. Now it only hurt. You remember. His voice sounded almost desperate. The woman laughed softly.
A broken sound.
A painful sound. I remember everything. Relief flooded his face. For one brief moment the years between them vanished. The distance vanished. The grief vanished. Only two souls remained. Finally reunited. Then she whispered, I remember her. The relief disappeared. Instantly. The king's expression hardened. Who? The answer came quietly. The Duchess. The room fell silent. The king's heartbeat slowed. Dangerously. The woman stepped closer. I remember what happened that night. Pain shook her voice. She pushed me. The king's entire body froze. The accusation felt impossible. Yet something inside him stirred. Because deep down, he had never fully trusted the Duchess. Not completely. Not after all these years. But before he could respond, the chamber doors exploded open. Guards rushed inside. Panic filled their faces. My king. The commander dropped to one knee. The council demands an emergency hearing. The king frowned. Why? The answer arrived moments later. Another piece of evidence. Another lie. Another perfectly crafted trap. The Silver Duchess had moved faster. This time the accusations were worse. Far worse. Forged documents appeared claiming the Luna intended to seize control of the throne. Secret correspondence. False witnesses. Fabricated plans. Everything looked real. Everything looked convincing. The kingdom erupted. The royal court became a battlefield. Nobles screamed across the chamber. Generals demanded action. Merchants threatened revolt. The Silver Duchess stood calmly at the center of it all. Playing the concerned advisor. Playing the loyal protector. Playing the victim. The king fought desperately against the tide. But every argument collapsed beneath public outrage. Every defense created more suspicion. Every delay pushed the kingdom closer to civil war. The Luna watched it happen in disbelief. The truth stood right before them. Yet nobody wanted truth. They wanted fear. They wanted someone to blame. And she was the perfect target. Hours passed. The court became uglier. Louder. More dangerous. Finally, the High Council delivered an ultimatum. Exile her. Or face rebellion. The choice shattered something inside the king. For years he had dreamed of finding her. For years he had searched.
Bled. Grieved. Prayed.
And now fate had finally returned her to him, only to place a crown of thorns around both their necks. The king sat alone inside the throne room long after everyone left. Darkness filled the chamber. Snow tapped softly against stained glass windows. His wolf raged. His heart screamed. But duty remained. Cold, cruel, unforgiving. A king belonged to the kingdom, not himself. And sometimes leadership demanded sacrifice, even when it destroyed you. Especially then. The Luna arrived shortly before dawn. She already knew. The moment she entered the room, she saw the answer in his eyes. Neither spoke. Words felt meaningless. The silence hurt more. Finally, the king stood.
Slowly.
Like a man walking toward his own execution. "I'm sorry." The whisper nearly broke. The Luna stared at him, waiting.
Hoping. Begging.
Not for love. For trust. The king lowered his gaze. And, in that moment she understood. He had chosen the throne. The kingdom.
Duty.
Not her. The realization shattered her heart completely. The Luna nodded once. A small movement. Almost nothing. Yet it felt like the end of the world. "I survived 5 years believing everyone abandoned me." Tears filled her eyes. The king looked away, unable to bear the pain. Her voice trembled. "I never thought you would too." The words struck harder than any sword. The king flinched visibly. But the damage was done. Some wounds arrived too late to heal. The exile procession left at sunrise. Snow covered the roads leading north. The 12 wolves surrounded her. Silent guardians. Faithful companions. The citizens watched from a distance. Some angry. Some curious. Some ashamed. The Luna never looked back. Not once. Because if she did, she feared she would break. High above the city walls, the Alpha King stood alone. The winter wind whipped through his dark cloak. His eyes followed her disappearing figure. Every step she took felt like another piece of his soul leaving with her. His wolf howled inside him, not with rage, with grief.
Raw.
Unbearable. Final. The king suddenly understood something horrifying. The day he lost her 5 years ago had not been the worst day of his life. This was because then fate had stolen her. This time, he had let her go himself. And as the Luna vanished into the snow-covered horizon, the Alpha King realized he may have just destroyed the only thing he had ever truly loved. Far away, hidden behind a palace window, the Silver Duchess watched her leave.
And smiled.
Certain she had finally won, completely unaware that destiny was already preparing her downfall. Winter eventually surrendered to spring, but the ice inside the Alpha King's heart only grew colder. 3 months passed after the exile. 3 months of silence. 3 months of regret. 3 months of waking every morning with the same crushing realization. She was gone. Again. The royal fortress felt emptier than ever. The halls echoed with ghosts. The gardens where they once walked together remained untouched. Even the wolves seemed quieter, as if the entire kingdom mourned a loss nobody dared name aloud. The Alpha King became worse. Much worse. He stopped attending celebrations, stopped hunting, stopped smiling. The rare warmth she had awakened vanished completely. Only the monster remained. Only the king forged by grief. Only the ruler who spent every night staring toward the northern horizon, wondering if she hated him, wondering if she was alive, wondering if she ever thought of him at all. Because the truth was simple. He deserved her hatred. Every day reminded him of that. Every night punished him for it. Meanwhile, far beyond the borders of the kingdom, the woman he had exiled was becoming someone entirely different. The frightened Omega who once survived inside an abandoned cabin no longer existed. Exile had killed her. Pain had transformed her. And from the ashes, something stronger emerged. Something the kingdom had never seen before. The northern territories were forgotten lands, poor villages, abandoned settlements. People left to survive without royal protection. For years they suffered beneath corrupt nobles and brutal winters. Then she arrived. At first, they saw only a traveler, a woman accompanied by 12 enormous wolves. Nothing more. Then she began helping. She healed the sick, fed starving children, protected villages from raiders, listened when nobody else would. The people expected payment. Powerful people always demanded something, but she never asked, never demanded, never ruled through fear. And because of that, people followed her willingly. The wolves became legends. The smallest pups had grown into magnificent creatures, massive, powerful, fiercely loyal. Wherever she traveled, they remained beside her. 12 shadows, 12 guardians, 12 living symbols of survival. Stories spread across the wilderness. Villagers whispered about a silver-eyed queen blessed by the moon goddess. Children told tales of a woman who could calm wild beasts with a touch. Merchants carried the stories south. Hunters carried them east. Soon the name echoed across entire territories. The Moon Queen. The title followed her everywhere. At first she rejected it. Then she learned something important. Leadership wasn't a crown. It wasn't a throne. It wasn't power. Leadership was responsibility. And responsibility could not be avoided forever. One evening she stood atop a rocky cliff overlooking hundreds of campfires. Refugees, farmers, warriors, families, all gathered beneath her protection. The sight stole her breath. Months ago she had been alone. Now thousands trusted her. The realization felt overwhelming. One of the wolves approached, the largest, the first pup she had ever saved. Its massive head rested gently against her shoulder. She smiled sadly. I never wanted this. The wolf remained silent, as always, yet somehow she understood. Destiny rarely asked permission. Far to the south, the kingdom continued collapsing. Corruption spread through the royal court. The Silver Duchess tightened her influence. Taxes increased. Food shortages worsened. Nobles fought each other openly. Trust in the throne weakened. And throughout it all, the Alpha King felt trapped. Every answer led nowhere. Every investigation ended in dead ends. Until one stormy night changed everything. Rain hammered the fortress. Thunder shook ancient walls. A dying prisoner was brought before the throne. A rebel. One of the last survivors from the uprising 5 years ago. The man was barely alive. Blood stained his clothing. His breathing rattled painfully. The king almost dismissed him. Then the prisoner whispered a name. The Silver Duchess. Everything stopped. The rebel laughed weakly. A broken sound. The truth. He coughed blood. The truth finally found me. The king's eyes narrowed. The chamber emptied immediately. Only silence remained. Only truth.
And truth arrived like a blade.
The confession lasted hours. Every word shattered another piece of the king's world. The rebellion. The forged evidence. The missing Luna. The assassination attempts.
The lies.
The manipulation. The river. Everything. The Silver Duchess had orchestrated it all. For years. The king listened without moving. Without blinking. Without breathing. Because every confession carried unbearable weight. Every confession proved one horrifying fact. The Luna had told the truth. And he had failed her. Again. The prisoner died before dawn. The king remained seated long after. Motionless.
Numb.
Broken. The silence inside the throne room became unbearable. Then something happened. For the first time in months, the Alpha King cried. No witnesses. No audience. No kingdom. Just a man finally confronting the consequences of his choices. One tear. Then another. Then many more. Grief consumed him. Not because he lost her. Because he had betrayed her. The realization nearly destroyed him. By sunrise, arrest warrants covered the kingdom. The Silver Duchess fled before soldiers arrived. War followed immediately. Half the court remained loyal to her. The other half turned against her. The kingdom fractured overnight. Chaos exploded. Cities rebelled. Armies mobilized. The throne itself stood on the edge of collapse. Yet the king cared about only one thing. Finding her. Before it was too late. Before another mistake cost him everything. He left the capital that same. Alone.
No army.
No advisors. No royal procession. Just a man riding north toward the woman he had broken. Weeks later, He finally found her. The sight nearly stopped his heart. Thousands of people filled a massive valley. Tents stretched endlessly across green fields. Children laughed beside rivers. Merchants traded openly. Warriors trained beneath banners carrying silver moon symbols. Order.
Hope. Life.
Everything his kingdom had lost. And at the center stood her. The Moon Queen. The Luna. His Luna. Yet somehow she seemed different. Stronger.
Calmer.
Untouchable. Power no longer surrounded her. Power belonged to her. The 12 wolves rested nearby like living legends. People greeted her with respect. Not fear. Respect. The king suddenly understood why thousands followed her. Because they loved her. Not because they had to. Because they wanted to. The realization humbled him. For perhaps the first time in his life. A nearby guard noticed him. Then another. Whispers spread quickly. The Alpha King had arrived. The crowd parted slowly, creating a path. The Luna turned. Their eyes met across the distance. Time stopped. Everything stopped. Months of longing, months of pain, months of regret, all collided in one devastating moment. The king stepped forward. His heart hammered violently. Hope and fear battled inside him. The Luna remained still, unreadable, beautiful, dangerously distant. For a moment he saw the girl he loved. Then the vision vanished. The woman before him was no longer the fragile Omega he once protected. She had become something greater. Someone greater. The king finally reached her. Silence stretched between them.
Heavy.
Painful. Unavoidable. Then he whispered, "I know the truth." Her expression never changed. The words continued.
Raw. Broken.
"I was wrong." Still silence. The king swallowed hard. His voice nearly cracked. "I'm sorry." The apology carried months of suffering. Months of guilt. Months of grief. Yet somehow it still felt inadequate. Because some wounds ran too deep. The Luna looked into his eyes.
Searching.
Measuring. Remembering. Finally she spoke. The words were soft.
Calm.
Far more painful than anger. "You should be." The king felt the blow immediately. Not because she was cruel. Because she was right. And as the wind moved through the valley, as thousands watched from a distance, as 12 wolves silently observed their reunion, the Alpha King realized something terrifying. He had found her again. But this time, winning back her trust might be harder than finding her in the first place. And far away in the shadows of a burning kingdom, the Silver Duchess prepared her final move. The deadliest move of all. War arrived with fire. The kingdom burned beneath crimson skies. Smoke rose from distant cities. Steel clashed against steel. Ancient alliances shattered. The Silver Duchess had finally abandoned her mask. No more manipulation. No more whispers. No more hidden schemes. The woman who had spent years poisoning the kingdom from the shadows now stood openly against the throne. And she intended to destroy everything. The capital became a battlefield. Nobles chose sides. Generals betrayed each other. Entire armies marched beneath different banners. Fear ruled the kingdom. Chaos ruled the people. And in the center of the storm stood the Alpha King. For years he had fought enemies. Now he fought the consequences of his own mistakes. Night covered the royal war room. Maps littered every table. Messengers rushed through corridors. Commanders shouted orders. Yet despite the chaos surrounding him, the king's thoughts remained fixed on only one person. Her. The Luna. The woman he had failed. The woman he still loved. The woman who had become stronger without him. A knock interrupted his thoughts. The chamber doors opened. A scout dropped to one knee. "My king." The king's eyes lifted. "The Moon Queen marches south." Silence followed. Then another sentence. "She brings 10,000 warriors." The room erupted. Shock spread across every commander. 10,000. Not mercenaries. Not conscripted soldiers. People who followed her willingly. People who believed in her. The king's heart pounded. Not with fear. With hope. Because despite everything, she was coming home. 3 days later, The kingdom witnessed something it would remember forever. The gates of the capital opened. The people gathered along every street, every rooftop, every balcony. Thousands watched, waiting, wondering, praying. Then they saw her, the Moon Queen, the lost Luna, the woman they once condemned. Silver banners danced above the crowd. The 12 wolves moved beside her like living legends. Massive, majestic, fearless. Children pointed. Old women cried. Men lowered their heads. Because everyone knew the truth now. The lies had been exposed. The betrayal revealed. The kingdom had wronged her. And somehow, she had returned anyway. Not for revenge. For salvation. The Alpha King watched from the palace steps. His chest tightened. The sight nearly stole his breath. Months ago, he had watched her leave alone. Broken. Heartbroken. Now she returned stronger than kings. Stronger than kingdoms. She climbed the stone steps slowly. The crowd fell silent. No cheers. No celebrations. Only anticipation. Because everyone understood something important. The war outside the walls mattered. But another battle remained unfinished. The battle between them. The Luna stopped several feet away. The king stared at her. Memories flooded his mind. Moonlit gardens. First smiles. Promises.
Loss.
Exile. Regret. Everything. For a moment the world disappeared. Only they remained. Then the king did something nobody expected. Something no ruler in history had ever done. He stepped forward, removed his crown, and dropped to one knee. The kingdom gasped. The sound echoed across the entire courtyard. Shock swept through thousands. Generals froze. Nobles stared. Even the wolves became still. The Alpha King lowered his head. Not before a queen. Not before a throne. Before the woman he loved. The woman he failed. And for the first time in years, he stopped being a king. He became a man. His voice carried across the silent courtyard.
Strong. Clear. Honest.
I failed you. No excuses. No defenses. No pride. Only truth. The Luna stood motionless. The king continued. I failed to protect you. Silence. I failed to trust you. Pain entered his voice. I failed to choose you. The crowd watched in stunned disbelief. Some cried openly. Others looked away. Because vulnerability felt more powerful than any display of strength. The king's silver eyes finally lifted, meeting hers, filled with emotion, filled with regret, filled with love. I'm not asking for forgiveness. His voice nearly broke. I'm only asking for the chance to earn it. The courtyard remained silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. The Luna stared at him for a long time, long enough for every person present to stop breathing. Because everyone knew this moment mattered more than war. More than politics. More than crowns. This was the moment two broken souls confronted everything between them. Then suddenly, an explosion shattered the silence. Fire erupted inside the palace. Screams followed. Chaos instantly returned. The Silver Duchess had launched her final attack. Assassins emerged from hidden positions. Explosions shook the capital. Panic spread through the crowd. The final battle had begun. The Duchess stood atop a distant tower overlooking the city. Her silver dress whipped violently in the wind. Hatred burned inside her eyes. If she could not rule the kingdom, nobody would. Her plan was simple. Destroy everything. Kill everyone. Leave only ashes. The battle consumed the capital. Steel rang through streets. Wolves fought beside soldiers. Citizens defended their homes. The Moon Queen stood at the center of it all. Not hiding. Not retreating. Leading. The frightened girl from the wilderness was gone forever. A queen remained. A leader. A symbol. And people followed her without hesitation. Hours later, the final confrontation arrived. The Duchess stood trapped inside the throne room. Surrounded.
Defeated. Exposed.
The Alpha King and Luna entered together. For the first time, the manipulator looked afraid. Real fear. The kind she had spent years creating in others. The Duchess laughed bitterly. You think you've won? The Luna looked at her quietly. The woman who stole 5 years of her life. The woman who caused endless suffering. The woman responsible for everything. Hatred should have existed. Revenge should have existed. Instead, she felt something else.
Pity.
Because despite all her schemes, despite all her power, the Duchess stood completely alone. The Luna stepped forward. The room fell silent. Everyone waited. One order. One sentence. And the Duchess would die. The choice belonged to her. Revenge. Or something greater. The Luna finally spoke. I spent years surviving what you did to me. The Duchess smiled mockingly. The Luna continued. I won't become you. The smile disappeared. The words struck harder than any blade. Because hatred would have been easy. Mercy required strength. Real strength. The Duchess collapsed. Not because she was defeated, because she finally understood. She had lost long before today. Guards led her away. Her empire of lies died with her. The war ended before sunrise. Peace returned slowly, painfully, but it returned. Weeks later, the kingdom gathered beneath a full moon. The capital glowed with silver light. Music drifted through warm evening air. Children laughed. Families celebrated. Hope lived again. The Luna stood upon a palace balcony, overlooking the city. The same city that once rejected her. The same city she chose to save. Footsteps approached. She already knew who it was. The Alpha King stopped beside her. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence felt different now. Gentler. Healing. The king looked toward the moon. Then toward her. Do you think they'll ever stop talking about us? A small smile touched her lips. Probably not. The king laughed softly. The sound felt unfamiliar, yet right. For the first time in years, it carried no sadness. Only peace. His hand slowly found hers. Not possessive. Not demanding. An offering.
A choice.
The Luna looked down at their joined hands, then intertwined her fingers with his, choosing him, not because destiny demanded it, not because fate decided it,
Because she wanted to.
Tears filled the king's eyes. He quickly looked away, but she noticed, and for the first time, she smiled without pain. Below them, the 12 wolves gathered beneath the moonlight. Their silver eyes reflected the stars above. Living reminders of survival, of loyalty, of second chances. The Alpha King wrapped an arm around her shoulders. The Luna rested her head against him. Together they watched their kingdom breathe again.
Heal again.
Live again. The coldest winter had tried to destroy them. Betrayal had tried to separate them. Grief had tried to consume them. But destiny endured. Love endured. They endured. And, beneath the light of the moon, the lost Luna finally came home. The broken king finally found peace.
And, this time,
Neither of them let go.
the end.